Malik, a talented young musician from a humble neighborhood, had dreams of making it big, dreams so bright they seemed out of reach. But when his little sister Amara fell seriously ill, Malik faced an impossible choice: to let go of his passion for music or watch his family struggle alone. Reluctantly, he set his guitar aside, taking on exhausting jobs to help his mother support them. Yet, even in the darkest times, music stayed with him, whispering reminders of the life he'd once imagined. Years later, with his family cheering him on, Malik took the stage at a community concert. His raw, heartfelt performance caught the attention of a record label, launching him into the spotlight. But as his music gained fame, he realized that the heart of his success wasn't just talent, it was the strength his family and community had given him. He returned home, dedicating himself to helping young musicians, and he built a career that honored both his roots and his dreams. Malik's journey from sacrifice to stardom proves that true success lies in staying true to where you came from. Inspired by his story? Share your thoughts and help us spread the power of resilience and family. The spotlight shone brightly on Malik as he stood center stage, gripping his guitar. His fingers trembled as he took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it. This small talent show at the community center wasn't just a performance for Malik. It was a glimpse of the life he'd dreamed of for as long as he could remember. With the first strum, the music took over, carrying him away, and for a few precious minutes, everything else faded. The bills, the late nights, his sister's condition. None of it existed here, in this moment. As the final note echoed across the small room, a hush fell over the crowd before they erupted into applause. Malik's heart raced, his cheeks warm with pride and relief. He glanced over to the corner where his mother, Loretta, was seated. She clapped proudly, her tired eyes shining with joy, but Malik noticed the deep shadows beneath them, a reminder of the countless hours she worked to keep their family afloat. As the applause died down and the audience began to disperse, Malik hurried off the stage, making his way over to Loretta. She pulled him into a tight hug, pride in her voice. "You were incredible, baby. I could listen to you play all night." Malik laughed softly. "Thanks, Mum. I'm glad you could come. I wasn't sure you'd make it with work and all." Loretta patted his shoulder. "Of course I came. I wouldn't miss it for the world," she said. But a hint of worry crept into her eyes as she added, "I just wish I could make it to more of your shows." "It's okay, Mom. I know you're doing your best." But as they walked out of the community center and into the cool night air, Malik couldn't shake the lingering heaviness he'd seen in her eyes. He wanted to talk to her about it, to ask if everything was all right, but he knew she wouldn't want to burden him. Malik had seen the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the notice from the electric company, and the grocery list with crossed-off items. He understood that their family had been barely scraping by since his sister, Amara, had been diagnosed with a chronic illness. The medical bills piled up faster than his mother could pay them, and the long shifts she pulled at the hospital left her exhausted. As they climbed into Loretta's worn-out sedan, Malik heard her let out a long, weary sigh. She closed her eyes, resting her head back against the seat, as if a moment of quiet could somehow recharge her. Malik's heart ached, and he suddenly felt the weight of an idea that had been gnawing at him for days. Maybe he could help. They pulled up to their small, dimly lit apartment complex, and Malik helped his mum gather her things. Loretta gave him a tired smile as they entered their home, their steps quiet so as not to wake Amara. Malik gently peeked into his sister's room, where she lay asleep, her small frame nestled beneath a blanket. Her breathing was soft and even, and Malik felt a surge of protectiveness. He would do anything for her. Later that night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, Malik's mind raced. He thought of the job openings he'd seen posted around the neighborhood, the ones at the grocery store and the local coffee shop. He knew getting a job meant he would have to cut back on his music and even some of his schoolwork, but what choice did he have? He could help his family stay afloat. He could give his mother a break and make sure Amara got everything she needed. But giving up his dream, even partially, felt like slicing away a part of himself. The next morning, Malik woke early, determined to talk to his mom about his idea. He found her sitting at the small kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee. Loretta looked up as he entered, her face softening with a smile. "You're up early," she remarked, surprised. "I thought you'd sleep in after last night's show." "Couldn't sleep much," Malik admitted, sitting down across from her. "Mum, I wanted to talk to you about something." Loretta took a sip of her coffee, her gaze becoming cautious. "What's on your mind, baby?" Malik hesitated, his fingers tracing patterns on the table. "I was thinking maybe I could get a job, part-time, after school and on weekends. I could help out with the bills and Amara's treatments." Loretta's face tightened, and she set her cup down, reaching across the table to take his hands in hers. "Malik, you're just a kid. You shouldn't have to worry about things like this." "I know, Mom, but I want to. I see how hard you're working and I know we're struggling. If I can help, even a little, I want to do it." Loretta's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head. "I appreciate that, Malik, I do. But your music, school, you have a future. You're so talented. I don't want you to give that up. I work hard so that you don't have to." Malik squeezed her hands, his voice soft but firm. "Mom, I'm not giving up. I'm just helping. I can find a way to balance it all." I promise. Loretta studied his face, torn between pride and sorrow. Finally, she sighed, releasing his hands. "All right, Malik. If you really want to help, I won't stop you. But promise me you won't let go of your dreams. You have a gift, and I want you to keep playing. You're destined for more than this." Malik nodded, his heart swelling with determination. "I promise, Mum." Malik sat on the worn couch in the living room that night, staring at his guitar propped up against the wall. Its familiar shape had always been a source of comfort to him, a way to express the dreams he held close to his heart. But tonight, the sight of it felt different. This guitar had been with him through countless hours of practice, through neighborhood gigs and school performances. It was more than just an instrument. It was a symbol of everything he hoped to achieve, a ticket to a life he'd always imagined. He picked it up, letting his fingers glide over the strings without pressing them down. The faint hum reminded him of what he was about to give up. Playing music wasn't just a dream, it was the one thing that gave him purpose. Yet as he sat there, he knew that what he was about to do wasn't about him. It was for his mother, who had sacrificed everything for him and Amara. It was for Amara, who didn't get a choice about the hardships life had thrown her way. In that moment, Malik realized that his dreams could wait, his family couldn't. The next day after school, he walked into the local grocery store where he'd seen a "Help Wanted" sign posted in the window. Malik took a deep breath and entered, his steps heavy with the weight of what this decision meant. The manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Thompson, looked up from the register, noticing the determined expression on Malik's face. "Can I help you, young man?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, sir," Malik replied, mustering his courage. "I saw the sign in the window. I'm looking for a job. I mean, a part-time position. I go to school, but I can work evenings and weekends." Mr. Thompson studied him for a moment, his expression softening. "You ever worked before?" "No, sir, but I'm a quick learner, and I really need this job." Mr. Thompson gave him a long look, as if sensing there was more to Malik's story than he was sharing. After a pause, he nodded. "All right, kid. We could use some extra hands, especially with the evening stock shifts. The pay isn't great, but if you're dependable, we might be able to work something out. When can you start?" Malik's heart leapt, a mix of relief and sadness washing over him. He could feel the weight of his decision settle more firmly on his shoulders, yet he managed a nod. "I can start tonight if you need me." Mr. Thompson chuckled. "That eager, huh? All right. Be here at 6. When he returned home, he found his mother in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup on the stove. The smell of simmering vegetables filled the small kitchen, a reminder of how Loretta stretched every dollar to keep them fed. Malik stood in the doorway, watching her, feeling the enormity of the path he'd chosen. "I got the job, Mom," he said softly, breaking the silence. Loretta turned, her eyes widening with a mixture of pride and worry. "Malik, already? You just talked to me about this last night." "I know, but I wanted to get started right away." He tried to smile, hoping to reassure her. "It's just a few hours in the evenings, and I'll still keep up with my schoolwork." Loretta set down the spoon, moving closer to him. She reached up, cupping his face, her thumb brushing against his cheek. "You're too young to be carrying all this, Malik. I just want you to know I see everything you're doing for us, and I am so proud of you. But please remember you're still allowed to dream." Malik nodded, feeling a knot tighten in his throat. He wanted to tell her that he hadn't given up on his dream, that he'd find a way to make it work. But in that moment, the thought of playing music felt like a distant luxury. Right now, he was just trying to get through each day to make sure his mother didn't have to worry quite so much. That night, he arrived at the grocery store for his first shift. The work was straightforward, mostly restocking shelves and helping customers find items, but it was tiring. By the end of the night, his arms ached from lifting boxes, and his back felt sore from bending and stretching. He walked home, his feet dragging, but his mind filled with the knowledge that he was finally contributing. It wasn't glamorous or exciting, but it was what his family needed. As the days turned into weeks, Malik settled into a routine. School, work, and the fleeting moments he still carved out for his music filled his days. He kept his guitar close, playing quietly in his room after everyone else was asleep, his fingers dancing over the strings in the dark. It was in these stolen moments, in the quiet melodies he played just for himself, that he kept his dream alive, even if it felt farther away than ever. Sometimes, after a long day, he would find Amara awake, sitting up in bed, her big eyes watching him with a mixture of admiration and worry. She knew more than she let on, sensing the weight her brother carried. Malik would sit beside her, brushing a hand over her hair, and they would talk about his music, her dreams, and the life he wanted for them both. "You're going to be famous one day, Malik," Amara would say, her voice filled with a quiet certainty that always made him smile. "And when you are, you'll play your guitar for everyone, right?" He'd nod, promising her that no matter what happened, he would keep playing. But deep down, Malik wondered if that promise was one he'd be able to keep. With each passing day, the reality of his responsibilities pressed harder against the dream he held close to his heart. Still he held on to that dream, clinging to it like a lifeline in the night. It was the one part of himself he wouldn't let go, no matter how far it seemed to drift. And in those quiet moments, with only the sound of his guitar and his sister's steady breathing beside him, Malik found the strength to keep moving forward, step by step, sacrifice by sacrifice, for the family he loved. Malik's life took on a steady rhythm, each day blending into the next as he balanced school, work, and his family responsibilities. He moved through the grocery store aisles with practiced efficiency, quickly learning the quirks of the job. Mr. Thompson, who had once been skeptical about hiring him, soon came to trust Malik's reliability, often praising him for his hard work. Malik found himself staying longer than planned, picking up extra shifts when another employee called out, and even volunteering to take on tasks that were less than glamorous. He knew every extra dollar counted. Yet as his work hours grew, his free time shrank. He had to drop out of the school band, a decision that felt like a wrench to his heart. Mr. Jackson, his mentor, and the retired musician who had been guiding Malik's journey in music, noticed his absence. Mr. Jackson often lingered by the school parking lot, sitting in his old pickup truck, hoping to catch Malik for a conversation. Eventually, he managed to intercept him one afternoon. "Malik," Mr. Jackson called out, his deep voice warm but concerned. "Where have you been, kid?" Malik paused, trying to hide the exhaustion etched on his face. "Hey, Mr. Jackson, I've just got a lot going on." Mr. Jackson gave him a long, knowing look. "A lot going on, huh? You don't have to tell me, but I can see it's weighing on you." Malik sighed, glancing down. "I had to quit the band," he admitted, his voice soft. "I'm working now, helping my mom out, you know." Mr. Jackson nodded, his expression a mix of understanding and sadness. "I respect that, Malik. Taking care of family is important. But don't let that talent of yours slip away. You've got something special." Malik forced a smile, feeling the familiar tug between duty and dream. "I know, Mr. Jackson. I still play, just not as much as I'd like." Mr. Jackson placed a reassuring hand on Malik's shoulder. "Just remember, Malik, music has a way of being there when you need it most. Don't shut that part of yourself off, all right?" Malik nodded, feeling a weight lift, even if only slightly. As Mr. Jackson walked back to his truck, Malik promised himself he would keep playing, even if it was just for himself and Amara. Back at home, life continued to revolve around caring for his sister and supporting his mother. Amara's health fluctuated, and on good days she would be full of energy, peppering Malik with questions about his music and school, talking animatedly about her favorite books and the stories she dreamed of writing. On tougher days, though, she lay curled in bed, pale and weak, her frail hand reaching for Malik's as he sat beside her, reassuring her with quiet words and soft melodies from his guitar. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Malik found Amara awake in her room, propped up by a pile of pillows. She had a tired smile on her face as she held out a small book she had been reading. "Malik, come here. I want to show you something," she whispered, her voice faint. Malik crossed the room, taking a seat beside her. "What is it, kiddo?" Amara opened the book to a marked page, pointing to an illustration of a young girl standing on a mountaintop, her face lifted toward the sky, a bright star shining above her. "This is you, Malik. You're the one who's going to reach the stars someday, just like her." Malik's heart clenched as he looked at the picture. "Amara, you're the one who's going to reach the stars, not me," he said, his voice wavering. "You're stronger than anyone I know." She squeezed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong, despite her frail appearance. "Maybe we both will. Promise me, Malik. Promise me you won't give up on your dreams, even if things get hard." Malik nodded, swallowing back the emotion building in his throat. "I promise, Amara," he whispered, his words a vow. The days stretched on, and Malik found himself pulled further away from his music. He was barely keeping up with his schoolwork, and exhaustion clung to him like a shadow. One afternoon, as he stumbled into his last class, his math teacher, Ms. Coleman, noticed the tired look on his face. "Malik, can I see you after class?" she asked gently. When the bell rang and the other students filed out, Malik approached her desk, his shoulders slumped. Ms. Coleman gestured for him to sit, studying him with a sympathetic gaze. "Malik, I can see you're struggling. I know you're a bright student, and I know there's something weighing on you." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "If you ever need help, whether it's with school or anything else, you don't have to face it alone. We have resources here to support students who are dealing with difficult situations." Malik looked down, feeling the familiar tug of pride and reluctance to open up. "Thanks, Ms. Coleman, I appreciate it, but I just need to get through this on my own." She nodded, respecting his response. "Just remember, Malik, your future is important. Don't let go of it." As Malik left her classroom, he felt the familiar pressure building, a mix of responsibilities and dreams, of wanting to help his family and still hoping for something more for himself. His decision to help his mother was one he didn't regret, but it felt like every day he was sacrificing pieces of himself to do so. Weeks later, things took an unexpected turn. Amara's health took a downturn, and she was rushed to the hospital with a severe respiratory infection. Loretta spent every possible moment by her bedside, holding Amara's hand, murmuring words of encouragement and prayer. Malik balanced school and work, visiting the hospital whenever he could, his heart aching as he watched his sister's small frame fighting so hard. During one visit, Malik sat beside Amara, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face as she lay in the hospital bed. Her breathing was labored, but she managed a weak smile when she saw him. "Malik." "You look tired," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Malik forced a smile. "I'm all right, kiddo. Just been busy, that's all." She gave him a small, knowing smile. "You work too hard, for me and Mom, but I'm glad you're here." They sat in silence for a while, Malik's hand holding hers. He felt the urge to pull out his guitar and play, but he hadn't brought it with him. Instead, he began to hum softly, a melody he'd written long ago, one that reminded him of a happier time. Amara closed her eyes, her breathing evening out as she listened. Malik hummed until he was sure she had drifted off to sleep, then quietly slipped out of the room, his heart heavy with worry and love. A few days later, Loretta came home with a rare look of relief on her face. She shared with Malik that some of her co-workers at the hospital had pooled together a fund to help cover a portion of Amara's medical bills. The kindness and generosity of the people who knew them had given Loretta a small reprieve, and for the first time in months, Malik saw her smile without the weight of worry clouding her expression. This unexpected support allowed Loretta to take a small step back from work, and she was able to spend more time with Malik and Amara. The relief was tangible, and Malik felt as if a small weight had been lifted from his shoulders, knowing that his mother could finally breathe a little easier. But even as things stabilized, Malik found it difficult to reclaim his music. He often stared at his guitar, his fingers itching to play, but every time he picked it up, he felt a pang of guilt. Playing music felt like a luxury he couldn't afford, a reminder of a dream that seemed too distant. His promise to Amara lingered in his mind, but the realities of life pulled him away from it time and again. Mr. Jackson, however, hadn't given up on him. One evening, he showed up at their apartment with a proposition. "Malik, there's a charity event happening next weekend, and they need someone to play. I told them I knew a talented young man who'd be perfect for it." Malik looked at him, taken aback. "Mr. Jackson? I don't know if I can." Mr. Jackson's gaze was firm. "This isn't just for you, Malik. It's for everyone who believes in you, your mother, your sister, your friends. This is your chance to share your music again, to remind yourself of who you are." Malik felt his resolve waver. The thought of performing filled him with excitement and fear. He thought of Amara's words, her unwavering belief in his talent. She had asked him to keep his dream alive, even when he felt like letting go. Finally, Malik nodded, his heart pounding. "All right, Mr. Jackson, I'll do it." As he practiced in the days leading up to the event, Malik felt a sense of purpose reigniting. Music, he realized, had never left him. It had been waiting quietly for him to find his way back. The charity event would be his moment to reconnect with the part of himself he had set aside, a small step toward honoring the dream he had promised to hold on to. Malik spent the week leading up to the charity event practicing late into the night. His fingers fumbled at first, out of practice and clumsy, but gradually the familiar rhythms returned. He poured his heart into the songs he chose, each one reflecting a part of his journey, the struggles, sacrifices, and the unwavering love for his family that kept him going. When his mother caught him playing one night, her face lit up with surprise. "Malik," she said, her voice soft with admiration. "It's been too long since I heard you play." Malik paused, lowering his guitar, suddenly self-conscious. I almost forgot how it felt, Mom. It's like a part of me I'd shut away." Loretta stepped closer, brushing a hand over his shoulder. "Music has always been part of you, baby. Don't let anything take that away, not even yourself." The night of the charity event arrived, and Malik's nerves were on edge. The community center was crowded with familiar faces, neighbors, friends from school, and even Mr. Thompson, his grocery store manager, who had come to show support. His mother and Amara sat front and center, Amara's face beaming with excitement despite her recent hospital stay. As Malik took his place on stage, he felt the weight of their gazes on him. His heart pounded, and he closed his eyes, taking a deep breath before strumming the first chord. The familiar vibrations of the guitar traveled up his fingers, steadying his nerves, and suddenly the world around him melted away. In that moment, it was just him, the music, and all the emotions he'd held back for months. He played with everything he had, letting each note carry his story. When he looked up, he saw his mother wiping tears from her eyes, her face filled with pride. Amara's smile was radiant, her hands clasped together, hanging on to every sound he made. For the first time in what felt like forever, Malik felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He was reminded of the dreams he'd tucked away, and the strength he found in the people who believed in him. After the final note faded, the room erupted in applause. Malik smiled, his heart swelling as he stepped off stage to join his family. Mr. Jackson came over, clapping him on the back with a grin. "See, kid? You belong up there. Don't you ever forget it." As the crowd dispersed, an older woman approached him, introducing herself as Ms. Grant. She was part of a community arts organization that ran programs for talented youth and helped them find scholarships to pursue the arts professionally. "Malik, your performance was beautiful," Ms. Grant said warmly. "Have you ever considered applying to a music school? There's a lot of support out there for talented young musicians like you. I think you'd be a strong candidate." Malik was taken aback, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and doubt. I've thought about it, but things have been complicated. I'm not sure if it's possible right now." Ms. Grant smiled, her eyes kind. "Sometimes the most difficult dreams are the ones worth holding on to." Here's my card. When you're ready, I'd love to help you apply. You have a rare gift, Malik. Don't let it slip away." He took the card, clutching it as if it were a lifeline. He thanked Ms. Grant and watched her disappear into the crowd, her words lingering in his mind. The dream he thought was out of reach suddenly felt closer than ever, just a step away. Malik knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time he allowed himself to imagine a future where he could pursue music while still supporting his family. The following weeks felt like a new beginning. Malik found a way to balance his school, work, and music. He started small, playing at community events and posting videos online. His following grew gradually, and the people in his neighborhood became his biggest fans, sharing his performances and encouraging him to keep going. Amara's health had stabilized, and she was back at school, cheering him on every step of the way. Malik's life felt like a balancing act, but he learned to find joy in the small victories, each day bringing him closer to the future he wanted. Then one evening, as he was practicing in his room, his mother knocked on the door. She stepped inside, her expression hesitant but hopeful. "Malik, I've been thinking about that music school Ms. Grant mentioned. Do you want to apply?" Malik looked at her, a mixture of hope and doubt flickering in his eyes. I do, Mom. But what if it doesn't work out? What if I can't handle it all?" Loretta took his hand, her gaze steady. "I know you can. You're stronger than you realize. You've taken care of us, given up so much, and still held on to your dreams. It's time you go after them, Malik." Her words filled him with a renewed sense of purpose. That night, Malik stayed up late, filling out applications and preparing for the auditions. The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparations, with Mr. Jackson and Ms. Grant guiding him, pushing him to give his best. When the day of the audition arrived, Malik's heart raced as he walked into the grand auditorium, the walls lined with students who had likely spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. He felt out of place, the weight of his journey pressing down on him. But as he picked up his guitar and began to play, he felt the familiar sense of calm wash over him, grounding him. He poured his heart into every note, his fingers moving effortlessly across the strings, each chord carrying the sacrifices he'd made, the love he held for his family, and the dreams he still clung to. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment before the judges exchanged glances and nodded approvingly. A week later, he received the acceptance letter in the mail. Malik stared at the envelope, his heart pounding as he read the words that confirmed his place in the program. He was going to music school on a scholarship, a chance to study and grow, all while ensuring his family's security. That evening, he shared the news with Loretta and Amara, their faces lighting up with joy and pride. His mother hugged him tightly, her voice choked with emotion. "I always knew you'd make it, baby. You're going to do great things." Malik hugged her back, the overwhelming relief washing over him. He had come so close to giving up on his dreams, but his family's love had pulled him through, their support turning the impossible into reality. The day he left for school, his family gathered to see him off. Mr. Jackson gave him a firm handshake, his eyes bright with pride. "Remember, Malik, you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for everyone who believes in you." As the car pulled away, Malik watched his family fade into the distance, the image of their smiling faces etched in his memory. He knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready. With his guitar by his side and his family's love in his heart, Malik felt prepared to take on anything. He arrived at the music academy, the campus bustling with students who shared his passion. As he walked across the courtyard, He felt the thrill of belonging to a place where his love for music wasn't just a dream, but a part of his daily life. For the first time, he felt the weight of his sacrifices lift, replaced by a future that was finally within reach. Over the next few months, Malik poured himself into his studies, his music improving under the guidance of skilled mentors and supportive classmates. He shared his story with those around him, and his passion inspired others who were struggling with their own challenges. When he played his first concert at the Academy, the seats were filled with familiar faces: his mother, Amara, Mr. Jackson, and many from his neighborhood who had believed in him from the start. He took the stage, his heart filled with gratitude, knowing that every note he played was a tribute to the people who had supported him. As the final chord faded, the crowd erupted in applause, and Malik looked out, seeing Amara cheering the loudest of them all. In that moment, he knew he had not only fulfilled his own dreams, but had also honored the sacrifices of those he loved most. His journey was far from over, but Malik was ready for whatever lay ahead, knowing he carried the strength of his family with him, a strength that would guide him wherever his music took him. Malik's new life at the Music Academy was a whirlwind of rehearsals, late-night study sessions, and constant practice. The campus was alive with students from all over the country, each of them fiercely talented and driven. Malik found himself inspired and sometimes intimidated by their skill. But he reminded himself of his journey, of the sacrifices his family made, and he pushed through his doubts with quiet determination. Classes at the Academy were intense, focusing on every aspect of music theory, composition, and performance. Malik had always played by ear, following his instincts and emotions rather than formal training. Here, he learned to read sheet music and master complex techniques that challenged his mind and body. Hours melted away as he lost himself in study, and each lesson deepened his understanding of music. It was exhilarating yet daunting, but Malik approached each challenge as he had everything in life, with resilience and an open heart. During one particular class, Malik was introduced to a course called Emotive Expression Through Music. The professor, a legendary jazz musician named Mr. Duncan, encouraged students to explore the emotions behind every note. Mr. Duncan believed that technical perfection was secondary to the story a musician told with their music, an idea that resonated deeply with Malik. One afternoon, Mr. Duncan invited Malik to the front of the class. "I've heard a lot about you, Malik," he said, his voice warm and encouraging. "I'd like you to share a piece that speaks to your journey. Show us what music means to you." Malik swallowed, his nerves on edge as he picked up his guitar. He hadn't prepared anything, but he closed his eyes and let his fingers find their way. He began playing a piece he'd composed during one of the most challenging periods back home, a melody he'd played for Amara when she was in the hospital, sick and tired, but holding on. The room fell silent, and Malik's music filled the space, each note carrying the weight of his journey. The long hours at the grocery store, the late nights studying, and the quiet moments spent reassuring Amara. He played with a raw intensity that came from a place deep within, a place touched by love, sacrifice, and the unwavering support of his family. When he finished, there was a hushed stillness in the room, and Malik slowly opened his eyes, his gaze meeting Mr. Duncan's. The older man gave him a nod of approval, his eyes reflecting a quiet respect. "That class is what I mean by emotive expression," Mr. Duncan said, gesturing to Malik. "That's music that comes from the soul, music that tells a story. Malik, you don't just play the notes, you bring them to life." After class, several students approached Malik, offering their admiration and encouragement. They shared stories of their own, struggles they'd faced in pursuit of their dreams, and for the first time, Malik felt a true sense of belonging among his peers. Each of them had overcome their own obstacles, and while their journeys were different, their shared passion connected them. As Malik settled into his life at the academy, he kept in close contact with his family. Every weekend he called home, recounting his experiences, sharing the highs and lows of his studies, and always ending with a promise to visit soon. Loretta's voice, warm with pride, reminded him of the love and sacrifices that had brought him this far, and Amara, now healthier, always asked him to play something over the phone. Even through the crackling of the phone line, her delight reached him, and he could imagine her face, bright with excitement. One Sunday afternoon, Loretta called with unexpected news. "Malik, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice tinged with excitement and disbelief. "You remember the fundraiser you played for before you left?" "Yeah," Malik replied, curious. "What about it?" "Well, a woman from that event runs a local arts foundation, and she reached out to me," Loretta continued. "She said she was so moved by your performance that she wants to sponsor an annual scholarship in your name. Can you believe it?" Malik's heart skipped a beat. "What? In my name?" "Yes, baby," Loretta said, her pride evident. "The Malik Scholarship for Young Musicians. She said your story inspired her to help other kids who might be struggling to pursue their dreams." Malik sat in stunned silence, his mind racing. The idea that his journey could inspire others, that he could help young musicians facing challenges like he had, filled him with a deep sense of purpose. He thought of the kids back in his neighborhood who'd never had the opportunity to learn music, who were just like him, full of dreams but struggling to make them a reality. This scholarship would be a chance for them to see their potential. "Mom, that's incredible," Malik finally managed, his voice choked with emotion. I just wanted to help us. I never imagined—" Loretta's voice softened. "I know, baby. And that's why this is so special. You're creating something that will help others. It's your legacy." Overwhelmed by emotion, Malik thanked his mother and promised to call back soon. After he hung up, he sat in silence, contemplating the impact of this scholarship. It was more than just a name. It was a bridge between his dreams and those of others who faced similar struggles. He knew that without the support of his family and community, he would never have made it this far, and now he had the chance to give back. Inspired, Malik threw himself into his studies with renewed vigor. He worked late into the night, pushing his skills to new heights and composing original pieces that captured his journey. The weeks blurred together as he prepared for an upcoming showcase, a concert that would bring together students, faculty, and potential sponsors. It was a significant event, one that could shape his future, and he wanted to give it everything he had. As the showcase approached, Malik practiced for hours every day, fine-tuning each note, each movement, until his fingers ached. He knew that this performance wasn't just for him. It was for everyone who had supported him, for the people who had believed in him, even when he doubted himself. The night of the showcase arrived, and the Academy's concert hall buzzed with anticipation. Malik stood backstage, his guitar in hand, as he listened to the sounds of other students performing. When his name was announced, he stepped onto the stage, the spotlight casting a warm glow around him. The audience quieted, and he took a deep breath, letting the silence settle before he began. He started with a gentle melody, one that built slowly, each note evoking memories of his journey. He poured everything into his performance, the love he had for his family, the strength he found in his community, and the hope he carried for the future. As he played, he could feel his music reaching the audience, connecting with them in a way that words never could. When he finished, the applause was thunderous, echoing through the hall. Malik stood there, overwhelmed, as the weight of his journey settled around him. In that moment, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. After the performance, several people approached him, including representatives from various music organizations and potential sponsors. They expressed interest in helping him further his career, and Malik realized that his future was unfolding in ways he hadn't dared to imagine. Among the crowd, he spotted Ms. Grant, the woman who had inspired the scholarship in his name. She approached him with a warm smile, her eyes shining with pride. "You've come a long way, Malik," she said, reaching out to shake his hand. "I can see now why everyone speaks so highly of you. Your music? It has a way of reaching people." Malik smiled, his heart full. "Thank you, Ms. Grant. I couldn't have done it without my family and everyone who believed in me." Ms. Grant nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "That's what makes you special, Malik. You carry your family, your community, and your journey with you. Never lose that. It's what makes your music real." As Malik left the concert hall that night, he felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. His journey was far from over, but he had overcome the first, most difficult steps. With each new challenge, he would carry his family's love, the support of his community, and the lessons he'd learned along the way. He knew now that his dreams were possible, not just for himself, but for others who faced struggles like his. Malik had come full circle, but this was only the beginning. The world of music was open to him, and he was ready to face whatever came next, with his guitar in hand and his heart full of gratitude. Malik's life continued to change after that showcase night. Offers started coming in, each one a small step toward his ultimate dream of becoming a professional musician. He was invited to perform at various local events, including fundraisers, school programs, and even some private gatherings hosted by music patrons. Every performance honed his skill, each audience reaction bolstering his confidence. One morning, Malik received a letter from the board at the academy. He unfolded it with trembling hands, barely believing his eyes. He'd been selected to perform as the opening act at the city's biggest annual music festival, a renowned event that attracted top musicians, producers, and scouts. It was an opportunity that could launch his career to heights he'd never dreamed possible. As he read the letter again, Malik thought of his mother and sister. This was their victory too. They had sacrificed as much as he had, if not more, and this achievement belonged to all of them. His fingers tingled with excitement, but along with that thrill came the ever-present weight of responsibility. He knew this opportunity could be the turning point he'd been waiting for, but he also felt the familiar worry creep in. He still had to balance school, part-time work, and his commitment to his family. Yet, in his heart, he knew he had to make the most of this chance. When he called home that evening to share the news, Loretta's joy was almost overwhelming. "Oh, baby, you're going to shine up there," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you, Malik. This is just the beginning." Amara chimed in from the background, shouting, "You're going to be a star, Malik. You'll show the whole world what you can do." Their voices filled Malik with renewed determination. As the festival date approached, he dedicated every spare moment to preparing, practicing each song until his fingers ached and his mind was a swirl of melodies and rhythms. This performance would be a way to show everyone the power of resilience, of family, and of hope. The day of the festival arrived and Malik stood backstage, peering out at the enormous crowd gathered before the stage. Thousands of people filled the open-air venue, their voices blending into an indistinct hum that only heightened his nerves. He closed his eyes, took a steadying breath, and thought of the countless nights he'd spent practicing, of the sacrifices his mother had made, of Amara's smile when she listened to his songs. He let those memories calm him, a reminder of why he was there. When the announcer introduced him, Malik stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding as he approached the microphone. The crowd hushed, and he could feel the weight of their anticipation. For a brief moment, he stood there, looking out at the sea of faces. Then, with a steady hand, he strummed the first chord, letting the music take over. He poured everything he had into that performance, each note carrying a piece of his journey. He played songs he'd written during his toughest moments, and songs that celebrated the strength he'd found in his family and community. The crowd responded with an energy he'd never felt before, their cheers and applause filling him with an indescribable sense of belonging. As he finished his final song, the audience erupted in applause, and Malik felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. He bowed, a wave of relief and pride washing over him as he left the stage. Backstage, people approached him, offering congratulations and praise. Among them was a man in his late 40s, dressed sharply with an air of authority and genuine interest in his eyes. "Malik, that was incredible," the man said, extending a hand. "I'm James Grant. I run a small record label here in the city, and I'd love to talk to you about recording some of your music. You've got something special, son, a gift that people need to hear." Malik's heart skipped a beat as he shook the man's hand. "Thank you, Mr. Grant. I'd love to talk more about it." They arranged a meeting for the following week, and as Malik left the festival grounds, he felt as if he were walking on air. He couldn't wait to call his mother and tell her about the possibility of recording his music. This was the chance he'd been waiting for, and he intended to make the most of it. At the meeting, Mr. Grant explained his vision for Malik's music, talking about the potential for creating an album that would capture his unique story and style. "We don't see many artists with a background like yours, Malik. There's an honesty and depth in your music that people connect with. We'd be honored to help you share that with the world." Malik agreed, and within weeks he found himself spending evenings in the recording studio after class, laying down tracks for his first album. The process was both exhilarating and exhausting, but each session brought him closer to his dream. He poured his heart into every song, each note a tribute to his journey, his family, and his community. As the album began to take shape, Malik's reputation continued to grow. News of his talent spread beyond the academy, reaching people in the music industry who were eager to support his work. He was invited to perform at more events, and his performances started drawing bigger crowds, each one a testament to his resilience and dedication. One night, as he sat in the studio listening to the final mixes of his album, Malik felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He thought back to those long nights at the grocery store, to the quiet moments with Amara, to the sacrifices Loretta had made, all of it leading him to this point. His music was no longer just a dream. It was a reality, something he could hold and share with the world. When the album was finally released, the response was overwhelming. Listeners from all over praised the emotional depth of his songs, the raw honesty that set him apart from others. People connected with his story, and messages of support poured in, many of them from young people who saw themselves in Malik's journey. One message in particular stood out to him. It was from a young musician who had been on the verge of giving up. "Your music reminded me why I started in the first place," the message read. Thank you for showing me that dreams are worth fighting for." Malik read those words with a smile, feeling the weight of his journey shift into something lighter, something filled with hope and purpose. He realized that his music wasn't just about his own dreams, it was about giving others the courage to believe in theirs. As Malik's career continued to blossom, he never forgot the people who had helped him reach this point. He returned to his neighborhood often, playing at local events and supporting young musicians through the scholarship program in his name. He became a mentor to kids who faced the same struggles he had, sharing his story and encouraging them to pursue their passions. One evening, he organized a special concert at the community center where his journey had begun. It was a night dedicated to his family, friends, and mentors, a celebration of the love and resilience that had carried him through. His mother, Amara, Mr. Jackson, and all the people who had believed in him sat in the front row, their faces filled with pride. As he took the stage, Malik felt a sense of peace wash over him. He looked out at the crowd, his heart swelling with gratitude. He picked up his guitar, strummed the first chord, and let the music flow, each note a reminder of the journey that had brought him here. After the concert, Malik sat with his family and friends, sharing stories and laughter. Amara hugged him tightly, her eyes bright with admiration. "I always knew you'd make it, Malik," she said. "You're my hero." Malik hugged her back, his heart full. "No, Amara, you're mine. You and Mom, you're the reason I got here." As the night drew to a close, Malik looked around at the people who had stood by him, feeling a profound sense of belonging. His journey had been long and challenging, but he'd learned that true success wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about the people who had believed in him, the community that had supported him, and the dreams they had all dared to chase together. In that moment, Malik knew that he had found his place in the world. His music would continue to tell his story, but it would also carry the stories of everyone who had been part of his journey. And as he looked out at his family, his friends, and his community, Malik felt a quiet certainty in his heart. He was exactly where he was meant to be. After that memorable night at the community center, Malik's career continued to flourish, each new opportunity bringing him closer to a life of music he had once thought impossible. He spent months performing at festivals, recording tracks, and meeting people in the industry who believed in his potential. Though his days were full, Malik always made time to call home, his heart warmed by the sound of his mother's voice and Amara's laughter on the other end of the line. But even as his dreams were unfolding, Malik felt the strain of balancing success with his responsibilities back home. His mother was proud of him, but he knew she still worked long hours, and Amara's health, though stable, was an ever-present concern. The more he traveled and performed, the harder it was to ignore the feeling that he was growing distant from the family he loved so dearly. One evening, after a long day at the studio, Malik sat alone in his small apartment, the city lights flickering through his window. He thought back to the nights when he'd sat by Amara's bedside, playing his guitar to help her sleep, and to the quiet conversations with Loretta when they'd talk about dreams and sacrifices. A longing to be with them tugged at his heart, and he wondered if his success was worth the distance it had created. That week, Malik decided to take a short break from his busy schedule and visit home. When he arrived at their small apartment, the familiar scent of Loretta's cooking filled the air, and Amara ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. Loretta hugged him tightly, her eyes misting with happiness. "You're looking skinnier, Malik," she said, eyeing him with a mother's concern. "I hope you're taking care of yourself out there." Malik laughed, warmed by her familiar fussing. "I'm trying, Mom, but nothing beats your cooking." They spent the evening catching up, Malik sharing stories from his travels and performances, while Loretta and Amara updated him on everything happening at home. Amara had been writing stories and was excited to share them, while Loretta spoke of her plans to cut back her work hours and focus on a small business idea she'd been considering, selling homemade crafts and baked goods in the community. As they talked, Malik realized how much he had missed being a part of their daily lives. Despite the success he'd achieved, he longed for the warmth and comfort of home, the small but powerful moments with his family that had shaped him. He saw how much his mother and sister had grown in his absence, and though he was proud, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been missing out on something precious. Over the next few days, Malik stayed close, helping Loretta with her new business idea and playing music with Amara. They set up a small booth at the neighborhood market where Loretta's baked goods and crafts quickly became popular. Malik played his guitar, drawing in customers and filling the air with his melodies, creating a warm and lively atmosphere. Watching his mother's pride as her creations sold and seeing Amara's delighted grin made Malik feel whole in a way that fame and recognition couldn't replicate. It was during one of these market days that Mr. Thompson, Malik's old manager from the grocery store, approached their booth. His eyes lit up when he saw Malik. "Well, if it isn't our local celebrity, Malik, it's good to see you back here." Malik smiled warmly, shaking Mr. Thompson's hand. "Good to see you too, Mr. Thompson. Thank you for coming by." Mr. Thompson glanced around, admiring the crowd around their booth. "I knew you'd go places, Malik, but seeing you here, helping out your family, makes me even prouder. You've stayed true to who you are, and that's rare." Malik felt a surge of gratitude, knowing that his roots had kept him grounded. "Thanks, Mr. Thompson. No matter how far I go, this will always be home." Over the next few weeks, Malik continued to split his time between his family and his music career, striving to balance both parts of his life. He traveled back and forth, attending important shows and recording sessions, while returning home regularly to support his mother's new business and spend time with Amara. His music began to reflect this duality, each song carrying the echoes of his life on the road, as well as the love he held for his family. One evening, after a particularly moving performance, he received a surprise visit from Mr. Grant, the record label executive who had helped launch his career. They met in a quiet corner of the venue, Mr. Grant looking pleased yet concerned. "Malik, you've come so far," Mr. Grant began, his tone appreciative. "Your music has resonated with people all over, but I sense there's a change in you, something pulling you back home. Am I right?" Malik hesitated, the truth weighing heavily on his mind. "You're not wrong, Mr. Grant. I love what I'm doing, but every time I leave my family, it feels like I'm leaving a part of myself behind." Mr. Grant nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Malik, music is about life, and life is about balance. Perhaps it's time to consider bringing those two worlds together. Maybe there's a way for you to stay closer to home while continuing your career." Malik felt a glimmer of hope, the idea of balancing his career and family suddenly seeming more achievable. "You think that's possible?" "I do," Mr. Grant replied. "Artists find inspiration in many places, and for you, home is where that inspiration began. Why not create music that's deeply rooted in your story, in the place and people who shaped you? The world will listen." Inspired by Mr. Grant's words, Malik began working on an album that would capture the essence of his life. His journey from the quiet neighborhood where he'd grown up to the bright lights of the music industry and the love and resilience of his family. He called it Roots and Wings, a title that symbolized the two forces guiding him, the grounding love of his family and the freedom to chase his dreams. Over the next several months, Malik poured his soul into the album, working tirelessly to craft songs that honored both his journey and the people who had supported him. The album featured heartfelt ballads about his mother's sacrifices, playful tunes inspired by his sister's boundless creativity, and reflective pieces capturing the challenges and triumphs of his career. Each track was a piece of his life, and the result was the most authentic music he'd ever created. When the album was finally released, Roots and Wings resonated deeply with listeners around the world. Fans and critics alike praised its emotional depth and honesty, and Malik found himself reaching a new level of success, one that felt even more meaningful because it was built on the foundation of his life and values. The album's popularity led to new opportunities, including an offer to embark on a tour across the country. But this time, Malik knew exactly what he wanted. Instead of a long, demanding tour that would take him away from home for months, he negotiated a series of short, intimate performances, spaced out enough that he could return home frequently. His label agreed, recognizing the importance of Malik's unique approach and the authenticity he brought to his work. The tour was a success, each performance filled with fans who connected not only with Malik's music, but also with his story. They saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, dreams, and the importance of family. Malik took time after every show to talk to fans, hearing their stories and sharing pieces of his own journey. It was a way for him to stay grounded, to remember that his music was not just about him, but about the connections it fostered. Throughout the tour, Malik's family traveled with him on occasion, joining him for certain performances, especially the ones close to home. Loretta and Amara became his biggest supporters, cheering him on and reminding him of the reason he had chosen this path. Each time he looked out from the stage and saw their faces in the audience, Malik felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing he had achieved his dreams without leaving behind the people who mattered most. One evening, after a particularly moving performance, Malik and Amara sat backstage, sharing a quiet moment. Amara looked up at him, her eyes filled with admiration. "You did it, Malik. You really did it. And you never forgot about us." Malik smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "I could never forget about you, Amara. You're the reason I started playing in the first place." As they sat together, Malik realized that his journey had come full circle. He had chased his dreams, faced countless challenges, and found a way to balance his love for music with his commitment to his family. He was living proof that it was possible to honor one's roots while spreading one's wings, to pursue greatness without losing sight of what truly mattered. With his family by his side, Malik knew that he had not only fulfilled his own dreams, but had also inspired others to believe in the power of love, resilience, and the courage to follow one's path. And as the applause echoed in his ears, Malik felt ready for whatever came next, knowing that his roots and wings would always carry him forward. As Malik continued his tour, each city brought new faces, new stories, and a growing connection with his audience. People saw in him a young man who had overcome hardship, and his music became a beacon for those struggling with their own dreams. Yet, as much as Malik enjoyed the energy of performing live, he still cherished his time at home the most. Whenever he returned, he spent hours with his family, grounding himself in the love and warmth that had carried him through his journey. One afternoon, while at home between tour dates, Malik received a letter from a prominent music organization. They were offering him an award for artistic achievement in the field of social impact. Malik was honored and humbled, but what touched him most was a handwritten note included with the letter. It was from a young fan named Jordan who wrote about how Malik's music had helped him cope with a difficult family situation. "Your songs make me feel understood," Jordan wrote. "They make me feel less alone." Malik read the letter twice, feeling its weight. Jordan's words brought back memories of his own struggles, of the nights he'd spent comforting Amara or listening to his mother's tired sighs. He had never anticipated that his music would reach people this deeply, that it would become a source of strength and comfort for those he'd never met. Jordan's letter was a reminder of the responsibility he held, not just to his family, but to everyone who found solace in his songs. With this renewed purpose, Malik committed to making his music more than just entertainment. He reached out to his team with an idea, a benefit concert to raise money for youth programs in his community, particularly for arts education. Malik knew firsthand how important music had been for him, and he wanted to give other young people the chance to experience its transformative power. The idea took off quickly. Sponsors from the music industry, local businesses, and community leaders came together to support the event. Malik spent weeks preparing, putting together a lineup of performances, recruiting other artists, and spreading the word. Amara joined him in planning, excitedly helping with every detail, while Loretta baked treats to sell at the event, eager to contribute in any way she could. On the night of the concert, the local community center was filled to capacity. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, and Malik could feel the electricity in the air as he took the stage. His family sat in the front row, pride glowing on their faces, and Malik felt a surge of gratitude for the journey that had brought him here. He opened the show with a song dedicated to Loretta, one that told the story of her sacrifices and strength. As he played, he saw her wiping away tears, her face a mixture of pride and love. Amara grinned beside her, cheering him on with every note. Malik's music flowed effortlessly, his voice and guitar carrying the crowd through moments of joy, sorrow, and hope. Each song was a tribute to the resilience and love that had carried him and his family through their hardest times. Between songs, Malik spoke to the audience about the importance of community, of how their support had lifted him and his family. He shared stories of his childhood, of the people who had helped him along the way, and of the dreams that had once felt so distant. His words resonated deeply, and he could see the impact in the faces of those listening. As the evening drew to a close, Malik invited Amara onto the stage. She was hesitant at first, shyly gripping his hand, but the crowd's warm applause encouraged her. Malik introduced her as his greatest fan and biggest inspiration, and Amara's face lit up with pride. She joined him in singing a simple, heartfelt song they had written together, a piece about family, dreams, and the unbreakable bond they shared. Their voices blended beautifully, and the audience watched with smiles, moved by the siblings' obvious love and joy. The concert was a tremendous success. By the end of the night, they had raised enough funds to launch a scholarship program for young artists in the community, ensuring that kids like Jordan would have opportunities to pursue their passions. Malik's heart was full as he looked around the room, realizing that he had come full circle. He had not only fulfilled his dreams, but had also become a source of hope and inspiration for others. In the weeks that followed, Malik remained deeply involved in the scholarship program, meeting with young musicians and mentoring them. He attended events at local schools, giving talks about perseverance and the power of community, always emphasizing the importance of staying true to one's roots. His presence and encouragement had a profound impact, and many students began looking to him not just as a musician, but as a role model. As the months passed, Malik found a beautiful rhythm between his music career and his family life. He continued to tour, record, and perform, but he always made time for home, for the moments that kept him grounded. He saw Loretta's business grow, her booth at the market becoming a beloved staple in the neighborhood. Amara blossomed too, her health improving and her dreams growing ever brighter. She continued writing stories, her creativity inspired by the journeys she had shared with her brother. One quiet evening, as Malik and his family sat together on the small porch of their apartment, Amara handed him a small notebook filled with her latest writings. "These are for you, Malik," she said, her voice filled with pride. "They're about you, about everything we went through and how you never gave up." Malik flipped through the pages, moved by her words. Each story was a reminder of the love and resilience that had bound their family together, a testament to the strength they had drawn from each other. He hugged Amara tightly, thanking her for the gift, and promised to read every word. Loretta watched them, her eyes full of contentment. "You've come a long way, Malik," she said softly, "and through it all, you never forgot where you came from." Malik nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I couldn't have done it without you and Amara. You both kept me going when things got tough. I'm here because of you." As they sat together under the fading light, Malik felt a sense of peace settle over him. His life was far from ordinary, but he had found a balance that allowed him to honor both his dreams and his family. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but with Loretta and Amara by his side, he felt ready to face anything. Over the next few years, Malik's career continued to flourish. His music reached wider audiences, his albums garnering critical acclaim and loyal fans across the globe. But no matter how far he traveled, Malik always returned home, finding strength and renewal in the familiar comforts of family and community. He became known not only for his talent, but for his generosity and commitment to giving back. Through his scholarship program, he funded music education for countless young artists, helping them pursue their dreams just as he had. He remained a mentor and friend to those who reached out, always finding time to offer advice, encouragement, or simply a listening ear. One day, as Malik prepared for a major concert in the city, he received a call from Amara. Her voice was excited and nervous as she shared that one of her stories had been selected for publication in a well-known literary magazine. Malik was overjoyed, promising to celebrate with her as soon as he was back in town. Amara's dream was coming true, and Malik couldn't have been prouder. That evening, as he took the stage, Malik thought about the incredible journey his family had taken. He remembered the nights spent working late, the quiet moments of doubt, and the unwavering love that had carried them through it all. As he played, he let those memories guide his music, each note a tribute to the family who had given him everything. When the concert ended, Malik stood before the roaring crowd, his heart full. He thought of his mother's words, of the pride he felt in staying true to his roots, and of the path he had carved through hard work, love, and resilience. In that moment, he realized that he had not only fulfilled his own dreams, but had helped others believe in theirs. Malik knew that his story would continue to grow, that new chapters awaited him and his family. But for now, he stood on the stage, basking in the love and support of those who had been there from the beginning. And as the lights dimmed and the applause faded, Malik smiled, knowing he was exactly where he was meant to be. A son, a brother, a musician, and above all, a man who had found his place in the world. As Malik stood there on the stage, a profound sense of gratitude washed over him. The applause continued, echoing in the vast hall as he took a final bow. In the audience, he saw Loretta and Amara beaming with pride, their faces illuminated by the stage lights. For a moment, he simply took it all in, the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering support from the people who had been by his side from the start. After the concert, Malik met his family backstage. Loretta enveloped him in a warm embrace, her eyes shining with tears. "Malik, every note you played tonight was a blessing," she whispered. "You've given this family everything." Amara hugged him tightly, her words filled with admiration. "You showed everyone here tonight what it means to hold on to a dream. You're my hero, Malik." He felt a surge of emotion, overwhelmed by the love he held for his family. "I couldn't have done any of this without you both," Malik said, his voice choked with feeling. "You've always been my strength, my reason to keep going." They spent the rest of the evening celebrating, sharing stories and laughter as they recounted the journey that had brought them all to this moment. Malik felt an immense sense of fulfillment, knowing that his music had become a bridge, connecting his family, his community, and people across the world who found hope in his songs. In the weeks that followed, Malik's career reached new heights. His album continued to inspire listeners, and his story was shared in interviews and articles, reaching people from all walks of life. But through all the excitement and recognition, Malik remained grounded, making sure to stay true to his roots. He visited schools, continued mentoring young artists, and worked closely with community programs, knowing that his success was meant to lift others up as well. As time passed, Malik began crafting new music that blended his experiences with those of the people he'd met along the way. Each song carried the lessons he'd learned, the resilience he'd witnessed, and the stories of love and endurance that had shaped him. He poured his heart into his work, creating songs that felt like conversations with the people he'd once been, young, uncertain, and full of dreams. One spring afternoon, as he walked through his neighborhood with Amara, they passed by the community center where he'd played his first show. Malik paused, looking at the building, memories flooding back. It was here that he'd taken his first step toward a life he once thought impossible. Turning to Amara, he said, "I think it's time we do another concert here. Something special for the community." Amara's face lit up, and she nodded enthusiastically. "Let's make it a celebration for everyone who helped us along the way." In the weeks leading up to the concert, Malik and Amara organized a homecoming event for the community, inviting friends, neighbors, and all those who had been a part of their journey. The evening was filled with music, food, and laughter, the air alive with joy and camaraderie. Malik performed his most cherished songs, each one a tribute to the people who had shaped his life. As the night came to a close, Malik addressed the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said. "I owe everything to this community, to my family, and to every one of you who believed in me. This isn't just my journey, it's ours." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers a testament to the love and support that had lifted Malik and his family through the toughest times. As he looked out over the familiar faces, Malik felt a deep sense of peace. He was home, surrounded by the people who mattered most, and he knew that he had found his true place in the world. When the crowd began to disperse, Malik stood with his family, his heart full. They walked home together under the stars, laughing and reminiscing about the journey that had led them here. Malik felt a profound sense of gratitude, knowing that he had not only achieved his dreams but had done so with his family by his side. In that quiet moment, Malik realized that his life's work would always be about more than fame or fortune. His true success was in the love he shared, the people he inspired, and the legacy he was building. A legacy rooted in resilience, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds of family. And as he looked up at the night sky, Malik knew that his journey was far from over. There would always be new stories to tell, new songs to write, and more dreams to chase. But wherever his path led, he would carry this love and gratitude with him, for he had found something that would last forever, a purpose driven by the power of family, community, and a dream that had finally come true.